Greetings and welcome to the long-delayed second episode of Oblivion Modding Showcases. As always, I'm your host Dark Elf Guy, and first, let me apologise for the multiple-month delay for getting this episode out there. I haven't really been able to keep up with the Oblivion modding community since about 2008, so I'm really playing a bit of catch-up here in terms of finding mods to showcase, and hopefully I can get the next episode out to you guys much faster. Now, I should mention that I'll probably be adding a UI category at some point in a future episode as well, just so you guys know. I'm not purposely ignoring UI mods, they just didn't quite make it in time to be added into this particular episode. And speaking of, this is a bit of a pirate-themed episode with about 10 mods that, for the most part, have a bit of a pirate theme to them, and as usual, you can find download links for each mod shown down in the description below. So why don't we just go ahead and get started with our popular mod of the week, which this week is Anvil Bay Expansion by JLF2N. Alright, this mod pretty much does what it says it does, in that it extends the harbour in Anvil, turning what was once a fairly substandard and disappointingly small port into a fairly busy harbour full of ships and an extended boardwalk and docks area, including a handful of new buildings like a warehouse, tavern and shipping company. There's also a lot more clutter and detailing that's been added to the harbour side, with barrels and crates and the occasional debris that's fallen into the bay. It's really a fairly scenic addition to one of Cyrodiil's only major port cities, making for a thriving and crowded bay full of sailors, ships and the sounds of commerce. And you also notice that there's a few ships that have been added outside the bay as well, scattered around to give a feeling that there's a lot of anchored ships waiting to do business in Anvil, and overall this is a really lively addition to the Gold Coast. And here you can see the new tavern that's been added to the waterfront, sort of a watering hole for the sailors and dock workers added by this mod, with a fairly lively and crowded night scene, with lots of sort of pirates and ship-themed decorations. And you also find a retired captain here who will offer to sell you a new house along the Anvil Harbour Boardwalk, assuming you have the gold to pay, of course. And here that you can see the house itself is a fairly standard Anvil style house with a foyer and dining area on the first floor, including a display case or two, and lots of sailing related decorations, and like model ships, boats and bottles and that sort of thing. And the second floor is a bit smaller with a master bedroom, and this is just sort of a small house that you can buy with some scenic views of the harbour. Now, this actually isn't the only home for sale added by the Anvil Bay expansion. This mod also adds the offices of a shipping company, as you can see here, and if you talk to Seascale, you can actually buy a houseboat for your personal use, so this is actually quite a bit more expensive than the harbourside house, and as you might expect with that added expense, the houseboat is actually considerably larger than the harbour house, with a full cabin, including a small library, dining area, and a study in the captain's room, as well as a bed and a few display cases. And down on mid-decks, you'll actually find a lot of storage, common dining, and a kitchen of sorts, with lots of food and drink stores, but primarily the mid-deck is home to a number of companion beds that any sailors or crew you hire can sleep in, and there's even a small jail on the very back here in case you decide to take on any prisoners. And it's important to note that this is actually supposed to be a sailable ship, so you could sail around the seas of Cyrodiil with this if you wanted to. For our house mod of the week this week, we have the Warrior Wanderer Ship Player Home by Viking 2, and this mod adds a new ship for you to take over as a player home in Topol Bay, with a small encampment on the shoreline and a rowboat to take you out to the ship itself. And yes, I realize that we just went from a town expansion featuring a sailable houseboat to a house mod featuring a movable ship home. Fair warning, there's going to be a lot of that in this episode. Basically, most of these mods have ship homes of one kind or another. That's sort of a risk of a pirate theme episode. And inside the ship, you'll find a lovely captain's cabin, including a bedroom with a library attached and dozens of books, as well as several wall decorations. And towards the back here, we have a study with some display cases, and also a document containing an introduction to the ship and crew explaining the functions of the various crew members. And the study also acts as a control room for moving your ship, where you can choose which ocean or riverfront city you'd like your ship to go to, and it'll appear there automatically, as you can see here from the Imperial City waterfront. And going back to the actual interior of the ship, the mid-deck provides the bulwark of the services and storage of the ship, with numerous chests for storing items, a kitchen and dining area that's served by a cook who can sell you food-related items, and a number of crew quarters, and each member of the crew provides a particular service or function for your convenience. Basically, these NPC crew provide just about every service, like a bookseller to a smith, to a mage that sells alchemical brews, as well as spells and offers enchanting services. And it's sort of just an all-in-one market on your own ship. And basically, this just eliminates the need to travel to any towns in order to get anything done that you might need. And the last level of this player's ship home is a combination mixture of storage, livestock, and also a training room with locked cells to practice lockpicking on, and practice dummies to wail on with your sword or with a bow and spells. And all in all, this is a fairly feature-complete home on the high seas that you can move as you so desire. This week's gameplay mod of the week is Side Sailing Ships by Side777, and this mod adds a new docks and ship market just south of Anvil, with a wide range of ships at harbour, and yes, each of these ships can be purchased and sailed out to sea, and there's certainly a lot of variety here, from alien-styled ships to traditional merchant vessels to smaller Viking longboats, and I believe there's even a few rowboats that you can personally purchase if you so desire. And inside the nearby Iliad ruin, you'll actually find an NPC that can sell you the deeds to any of the ships at dock, and these range in price from about 8,000 gold to nearly 90,000 gold, so these aren't exactly affordable purchases for new players, and it's definitely something you'll have to sort of save up for. And a lot of these vessels have interiors, so basically they act as, again, player homes on the high seas. And hey, third mod in a row with this feature, so we're quite on the streak here, aren't we? But anyway, these ships come in a variety of styles, like this Aeolid ship here, which has some fairly unique decorations and furniture that sort of mimics what you can find in Aeolid ruins, certainly a cool option. And taking a look at another one of these ship interiors here, this one is a bit more of a traditional Imperial style, with the standard fare Imperial cabins with a library, sitting area, and an interesting feature of this particular vessel is you can actually turn on the lights by casting fire spells on them, and likewise you can cast frost spells on the lights to turn them off again. And the mid-deck of this vessel provides a sort of kitchen-like area for fireplace, as well as a bathroom with a bathtub, a display area with a bunch of artifacts and containers, and towards the back here there's a dining room with a small seating area for yourself and your crew, and towards the end here there's a couple of companion beds, and you'll notice there's some more lanterns that you can turn on here, and in the very back you'll find the master bedroom for your own personal use. And as you might imagine, these ships are completely controllable by the player. You can set speed and course, sailing the ocean waters off the coast of Cyrodiil, and you can even wander around your ship while it's moving, and many of these ships have containers on the deck for storing loot. Essentially, these ships operate a lot like the Ultimate Galleon mod and Fishing Academy mod from Morrowind, for my Morrowind viewers who may be more familiar with those mods. And personally, sailing my own ship around the coast of Anvil was one of my favourite features that was modded into the Morrowind, and I gotta say, there's just something about sailing your own ship on the high seas. It's a fantastic feeling, and it's really nice to see it here in Oblivion as well. And there's certainly a wide range of small vessels that you can buy and sail around, like the Viking ship here, and these are probably better suited for navigating rivers and the like. And another feature of this mod is that it adds sailors to a variety of different taverns around Cyrodiil that you can hire and assign to one of your ships. And these NPCs can basically perform services for you, like taking over, navigating your ship, and this is just a really fantastic mod for adding sailable ships to the game. Next up we have our Town of the Week, which this week is Eastbrink Town by Anti-Scamp, and Eastbrink is a new town on the shores of the Nibbin Bay across from Breville, and it's, to be honest, a beautiful and scenic town of about a dozen structures or so, including a small docks, a town square for Mayor's House, chapel, an assortment of middle-class and lower-class houses, a cemetery, and a number of shops and a tavern in the centre of town. Most of the town is actually located on a central street, and while it's no large city, it's larger than most of the villages in Cyrodiil. and there's some really lovely scenery nearby as well, like the Iliad ruins on the edge of town, and there's just a lot of nice detailing that went into creating this village with 4 NPC schedules and activities, so it really feels like a living, breathing town. And something to note here, this is the second time we featured a mod by Anti-Scamp. The last time was in the 2nd episode of Oblivion Modding Showcases. So it'll be interesting to see if we ever start covering Skyrim mods, if we end up featuring an Anti-Scamp town mod in the 2nd episode of that series. Not that we will ever actually do that, that's just, you know, something that we might do. And of course there's a few shops here with services for you to use, such as general merchandise. And a rather cool feature of this mod is that each NPC has a small bit of unique dialogue, just enough to establish a bit of a background story and each NPC's occupation, though none of these NPCs are really voice acted at all, at least I don't think any of them are, so that's just something to keep in mind. And the town also has a house you can acquire from the mayor here, and just taking a moment to appreciate the town design. Some of you might remember that Anti-Scamp has a pretty long history with making town mods, like Telnicum from Morrowind, and he's a remarkably good town designer, it has to be said. And the player house you can acquire is a fairly standard fare sort of choral style house with a small kitchen and dining like area on the first floor. And something to note about this town is that it actually has a few books that go into detail about the town's history, which is something I especially appreciate. I always like a bit of lore with my mods. And upstairs you'll find a mixed bedroom, study and display area with a few display cases for displaying items and the like. And the house also comes with a full-scale basement, including lots of storage and a bit more display space with a number of tables you can use. And all in all, it's a fairly small but cozy home in a beautiful little town on the Nibbin Bay. And one last thing to show off here, the town has a pretty nice magic shop with a number of services for those who are more magically inclined. And with that, I'm going to leave off here, though there's a lot more to this mod that you should check out, and it's definitely a town mod that I highly recommend playing. For our items of the week this week, we're taking a look at Passenger Ships Cyrodiil by Comspin. And yes, I know this isn't actually an items mod. I was actually hard-pressed to find any good pirate or naval-themed items mods that weren't, you know, skimpy female clothing mods. And I thought we should cover this mod instead anyway, so we're just running with it. And in any event, this mod adds passenger ships that provide transportation to a number of different coastal and river cities, including support for a number of landmass mods out there. And you can ask the first mate here about various details relating to this ship's functions, with a little bit of background regarding the shipping company. And there's also a pamphlet that provides you with a list of ships and their destinations, along with the option to mark them on your map so you can easily find them. And now, much like with every mod so far this episode, these ships typically have cabin interiors, and here you can find beds for passengers and crew, and usually a few basic services like a cook that provides meals and drinks should you need them for your voyage. And when you're ready to depart, you can have the first mate start the ship along its planned voyage. And here it should be noted that this is completely in real time, and that this mod appears to be pretty much compatible with Anvil Bay expansion. Probably the best comparison to this mod for my Morrowind viewers would be Abbott's Boats mod, real-time transportation from city to city by sea or river, and you can also see the ships just depart automatically, so you might see ships just going from destination to destination in the world without you on board, which is a pretty cool effect in my opinion. Though it should be mentioned that you'll probably want the shipping and Cyrodiil mod to prevent any unsightly clipping with bridges and the like, and really, this is just a great mod to use in conjunction with a lot of other mods, especially landmass mods, since this mod comes with support for a lot of various landmasses like Sturk and Valenwood. And in any event, this is a great real-time transportation mod that adds some fun elements to traveling with some immersive qualities, and definitely worth checking out if you enjoy ships. This week's quest of the week is the Golden Crest, a major pirate quest by Kafana, and this one starts out really simply, with you overhearing a rumor about a pirate ship somewhere off the coast of Anvil, starting a quest to eventually join the crew of this pirate ship. Before you can even see this ship, however, you must first help one of the crew that's been trapped in Anvil by the long arm of the law, helping him escape back to the boat, and this basically serves as your introduction to the ship and crew of the Whaling Butcher. After that, you can join up with the crew, and before you're given any real meaty task, you'll first need to prove yourself by running a bunch of tiresome errands, which is really pretty standard fare for questing stuff, really. And this kind of reminds me a bit of Morrowind, which also made you do a lot of tiresome stuff before you were given any of the important stuff. And something to point out here is that each of these characters has a bit of a personal story about why they became a pirate, and really I should also mention that this showcase video isn't exactly representative of what you can find in the Golden Crest, because this is a really quite massive mod, and according to the readme file there's actually over 40 quests and over 30 hours of content to explore. I was only able to cover maybe 10% of this content for the showcase video, so just keep that in mind, that a lot of the exciting adventures that happen further along in this quest mod aren't really being shown here. But of course there's a lot of combat related missions in this quest line, as you might expect from a pirate crew, as well as a number of new dungeons that have been added in around Cyrodiil, and these will involve some fairly mid-level ranged fights, like with bandits as you can see here. Of course, a lot of the major combat-themed missions might be later on in this mod. For the most part, your early tasks will involve tracking down NPCs and finding items and stuff like that. You might also be asked to sneak up on an enemy camp to eliminate some opponents, and that sort of adds a bit more combat element to these early quests. But again, this is a very long quest line. And something to note here is that this quest mod is far more than a simple pirate adventure. There's actually a number of different questing hubs, including a new tavern located just south of Breville, and this is sort of a secondary quest hub to the Wailing Butcher of a large cast of unique characters that frequent the place, and many of these characters will provide even more quests for you to do, and all in all, if you like quest mods, which you should since they're the best, the Golden Crest provides an absolute ton of questing content, with tons of writing, characters, and stories to be told, and I'd highly recommend giving it a try. Next up is our Landmass Mod of the week, and this week we are Barbada Island by Awea and Rebel. And this mod actually starts out with a small sort of quest where you join the crew of a small ship out of Anvil making its way to Barbada. And there's actually a bit of dialogue here, and notably a lot of this is voice acted, which is always a plus with a voice acted game like Oblivion, though naturally I think Morrowind's text dialogue is vastly superior to anything found in Oblivion, just, you know, my Morrowind elitism there. And of course your trip to Barbada Island is actually cut a bit short when pirates attack the vessel, providing for a bit of a high seas romp of combat between these two ships before you can move on to the island itself. And when you do finally arrive, you'll find a lovely island of a bit on the small side, and this is home to a fairly large city of about 20 buildings or so, the capital of Barbada Island, and you'll notice a lot of Breville-style architecture here. The city design is actually pretty cool because it utilizes a decidedly vertical design with streets at multiple levels, with markets on the ground levels, but little alleyways and passageways up above providing access to various apartments and flats where the residents of this shipping town live. And overall, it's a pretty cool harbour-side town where the main industry has everything to do with sailing and, of course, the production of spirits and bottles of rum. And just to take a second look at these sort of upper-level streets, you can see they're kind of like gangways that run between buildings, and you can pretty much get to any part of the town just from these on-high pathways, which is perfect for assassins, thieves, or drunken sailors just looking to crash at home. And there's certainly a bit of a danger element there for drunken sailors. I imagine they might fall off and hit their head or something. But naturally, there's a number of taverns and shops in the city, providing a number of different services, such as drinks, beds, and even a few general goods stores for selling merchandise. But there's also a few quests here as well, and something I really ought to mention is that Barbada Island is actually in a beta state at the moment, while the city and island is for the most part complete with scheduled NPCs that go about their daily lives. And there's even some quests, but the mod isn't quite finished yet. There's not a lot of completed main quest line in place yet, but all in all, it's a cool Landmass mod, and I should mention there's actually 3 other islands included in this mod that aren't shown here. As usual, I'm just trying to give you guys a taste of what you can expect with this mod without spoiling everything, so I'll leave you guys to play this mod for yourselves and find everything else that this mod provides. And in any event, there's a ton of cool locations in this mod, including some below water with wrecked ships, and those above the sea with ruined forts and dangerous cliffs and reefs for you to explore. And really there's some rather nice scenery that's been added to this island. This coastal reef and cliffs in particular is, you know, kind of a characteristics of what you might expect in like the Caribbean or something of that nature. And this mod does come with a unique world map for easy fast travel between the new locations that you'll discover, and it's just sort of a fun mod to explore as you so desire. For our NPC Mod of the Week this week, we have a CM partner, Pirate Captain Dante de Raven by Divine Avenger, and this mod adds a new pirate captain to the bloated float in the Imperial waterfront that you can take on as your adventuring companion as you explore and fight across Cyrodiil. He's a very sort of traditional and stereotypical looking pirate, with the beard, eye patch, hook hand, hat, and even a peg leg. If you like pirates, this is probably the best feather you can have traveling alongside you. Since this is a CM mod, it comes with pretty much all the CM features, like checking the character's abilities and skills before you take them on, and he also has all the same companion scripts that you might expect from a CM mod, with numerous different commands you can give him, like forming a companion party, or taking a swig of a drink, or any of a dozen other commands. And I have to say, I'm probably going to have to cover CM partners in the next episode, since it's a pretty major companion mod for Oblivion, and definitely worth showcasing on its own, but that's for another time. Meanwhile, the captain here is a pretty good fighter with a specialty in long blades and sneaking, and he'll fight alongside you and dispatch opponents trying to kill you. Always handy, since the roads of Cyrodiil are quite dangerous for the so-called capital province of Tamriel. And much like Morrowind companion mods, he'll go into sneaking when you do so you can sneak up on hostile enemies and get the first attack in if you so desire. And all in all, this is a fairly good pirate-based companion mod for your travels, and I'd recommend checking it out if you particularly enjoy having a pirate alongside you as you adventure around Cyrodiil. And this week's New Meshes and Textures mod of the week is Oblivion Character Overhaul version 2 by Nuska. And now on the off chance that you guys don't quite remember what Oblivion characters look like in Vanilla Oblivion, you can see a couple of NPCs here with what I believe are the original faces that came with the game. And what this mod does is it essentially completely overhauls the characters in Oblivion to look less mediocre and more modern, with some great unique and diversified character graphics. Now Argonians actually kind of look like Argonians, with extremely reptilian features and bug-eyed faces that are a stark contrast to the other residents of Tamriel, making Argonians appropriately alien-feeling, and really they are kind of alien-like, considering their relationship with histories. Another race that's been considerably changed is the Orcs of Cyrodiil. They're much more, well, I guess orcish, I suppose, with darker, occasionally greenish skin and large, fairly prominent teeth, not to mention those piercing eyes. And really this mod goes a long way to highlight the differences between a lot of races. Instead of the typical, everyone has a round, ugly face like you'll find in a vanilla Oblivion, you can now see that the Khajiits are much more feline, for example, with a variety of different face types. And I think the noses here are especially feline refined, which is a really nice touch. And it's not just beast races, the other races have also been given major updates, like the Dunmer here, my personal favorite race, with darker red eyes and a number of face tattoos that have been added in by this mod. And here's another NPC, I believe this one is a Breton of sorts, and again you can see that this mod has basically added some very distinctive facial structures to the NPCs here. Something that was notably absent in Vanilla Oblivion, and right next to her is another Dunmer, again with some pretty impressive facial structures, really a lot better than those round faces that Oblivion is known for, and all in all, it's easy to see why a lot of people consider this an essential mod for Oblivion, and it's definitely one I recommend picking up for any playthrough. Finally, for our underrated mod of the week this week, we have Pirate Island Damage by, obviously, Damage. And this is essentially another house mod, one that you have to buy from this NPC here for the hefty sum of about 35,000 gold or so. And this is basically a private pirate island for yourself that you can also buy a number of upgrades, such as furnishings for your little hideout, and also a crew that will provide various small services for your convenience, though this will set you back a fair amount. And the island itself is just a small little isle with a dock, encampment for your crew and companions, as well as a shipwrecked vessel that just sort of adds to the atmosphere of the place. The main house is actually located in a cavern that's sort of just in the center of everything. There's not really a whole lot of other landmarks on this island besides the shipwrecked vessel and the cavern. And of course the crew here that you'll find inhabiting the island provides a number of services like enchanting, spells, and of course bartering with a small amount of gold that you can use to line your pockets when you come home with a pile of loot. And the player home itself is really a small cave of sorts with a dog companion that'll follow you around, and lots of storage, a small dining area, bedroom, and a few other small decorations. It isn't a large home by any stretch of the imagination, but it suffices as a nice little lair for you to plan your latest heist or pirate raid. And anyway, that wraps up all the mods I have for you guys this week. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, do please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in a couple of weeks or so with another 10 Oblivion mods for your viewing pleasure.